Lee Montville was at Fenway Park last night, where he's covered the Red Sox for many years, not quite back to Babe Ruth's time, as a sports writer for the Boston Globe and Sports Illustrated, and now for SportsOnEarth.com. Well, Lee, I mentioned the worst to first aspect of this. A big part of that was changing a number of players, right? Tell us how they turned things around.
Sure. They ripped up the roster pretty much and sent a bunch of guys out to Los Angeles who they thought were malcontents and didn't fit into the program. And they brought in a bunch of bit players. They didn't go out for the high-priced free agents as they had in recent times. They went and got some kind of B actors and character actors and brought them in and put them around a core that had been here last year, some pitchers who had been beleaguered and kind of raked over the coals and parboiled for 24 hours every day by the talk shows, and a few players that had been kind of injured in last year's bad year. And they put it all together, and somehow it all worked. Every piece they put into the puzzle seemed to fit just right.
You know, we talk about the first win in Boston, but of course it was 2004. That was the great lifting of the curse. And you and I talked at that time when that happened. How did last night compare to then?
Well, I myself think that nothing compares to the then. Then was in 2004. It was an 86-year-old sort of crusade, a local quest for the Holy Grail. People lived, people died, fathers, mothers, kids, grandfathers, and the Red Sox never won the World Series. And when it finally happened in 2004, it was just a communal relief, and people were going to grave sites and talking to deceased people, and it was just an outflow of emotion. Since then, it's been the Red Sox have been another pretty good team, and you follow them like a normal team. And the great boulder that we all were carrying around for so many years has been removed, and it kind of has freed everybody up to act normal, I suppose.
Well, you know, I told you that, and I remind you now, I was one of them growing up in Boston, so I know about the real connection of the team to the city. And in that light, I want to ask you about the connection to the marathon, the bombing at the marathon, and the tragedy. There was a lot of talk about that last night, about how the players felt, the organization felt, and clearly the fans felt.
Yes, very much so. I mean, there was a very big connection to the marathon bombing, because the Red Sox always play an 11 o'clock game on Patriots Day, and that's in April. And so they were right around when it all happened, and they jumped into the situation from the beginning. I guess they would send like little groups of 5 players off to see people in hospital rooms and talk with them. And all season, they honored the victims of that and the first responders, and they never let it go. And in the past, players kind of had a sketchy relationship with the city. They're under an intense scrutiny here, and they didn't like it. You had to be a certain kind of player to play in Boston, and you were always being criticized when you did wrong. And this bunch of guys, they seem to embrace the whole situation in Boston, and Boston came to embrace them in the end. And it's been a far more symbiotic, nice relationship than I can ever remember between the team and the town.
And let me just ask you briefly about the beards, which became a sort of symbol of, I guess, a sort of attitude. What happens now? Have they said they shaving them or keeping them?
I read a little thing today that they might be shaving a lot of them for charity. So, you know, you could probably buy some of those beards and go home and stick them on your face or something. I don't know, but it was kind of a great symbol. They looked like a bunch of Bolsheviks, didn't they?
Boston sports writer Lee Montville, thanks so much.
Thank you, Jeffrey.